Second time, I call the member for Pittwater.
Speaker, along all those in Pittwater, I've been profoundly shocked by the events on Sunday the 14th of December, a date that will be forever etched into the memory of so many Australians and one that has shattered the Jewish community, confirming the fears that they had been warning us about. There's no doubt we must act and stop this ever happening again. What occurred that early evening was a horrific anti-Semitic terrorist attack. Two extremists set out to murder members of Sydney's Jewish community as they gathered to celebrate Hanukkah. We live in one of the greatest cities, in one of the greatest states, in one of the greatest countries on earth. Bondi, like so many parts of the northern beaches, is a place of calm, of peace, of community, and a thriving Jewish community encompasses that community. That calm was shattered last Sunday with 15 lives innocently lost and taken. So I rise today to speak in support of Terrorism and Other Legislation Amendment Bill 2025. I also commend the government for recalling Parliament and for working in a multi-partisan way, because people do want action this side of Christmas. They want swift action. And I want to particularly acknowledge the leadership shown by the Premier and the Leader of the Opposition in the days since the attack, who have demonstrated unity rather than division that has been seen at a federal level and in some of our media. The bill before us deals with both firearms reform and protest reform. It deals swiftly with some of the contributing factors that led to Sunday, but it does also fall short of everything that we need to do over time. This bill is not the total answer, but it is the beginning. Australians are united in ensuring that such a horrific anti-Semitic attack will never happen again. And as legislators, we must enact legislation that will be effective, but will also be nuanced and balanced to ensure that our rights of a liberal democracy that include the right to protest are balanced with the needs to stamp out hatred, anti-Semitism, Islamic radicalisation, and in doing so, make sure we do not have unintended consequences. This bill limits licences in regards to firearms, strengthens storage requirements of those firearms, removes unnecessary appeal processes, and ensures that licence renewals are as rigorous as initial applications. In the days since the attack, many constituents have expressed to me disbelief that such a violent armed terrorist attack with high-powered firearms could actually occur nearly 30 years after Port Arthur. And I have to say there is strong support in Pittwater for tighter gun laws immediately. People were shocked by media reports that a person in Duffy's Forest has over 200 guns, that someone in Narrabeen has 198 guns, that in the suburb of Avalon there were 233 gun owners, not to mention that there are 4 million guns remaining in Australia post-Port Arthur. They were shocked by the type of firearms used. They were shocked that the alleged perpetrator was a licensed gun owner, given that the close family member had previously been a person of concern to ASIO. And that they're appalled in 2025 agencies could not connect the dots, that part of our gun licensing system remains paper-based, and that individuals can legally accumulate multiple firearms, and that non-citizens can hold firearms licences. Many genuinely believed that gun reform was settled decades ago and that they are demanding action now. However, I must also acknowledge that this legislation has been introduced very rapidly and without any level of consultation and evidence base that would be expected for the type of reform of this magnitude. And I particularly want to point out that despite my electorate being an urban coastal electorate, it also is in Pittwater and its surrounds. We also have gun ranges, we have firearms businesses, and these are law-abiding citizens who compete, including law-abiding citizens, those who compete nationally and internationally in shooting sports. And of course, this may go to explain some of the numbers that other people in my electorate were shocked at in regards to gun ownership. Many of them have contacted me in the last few days, and they are very concerned that these reforms are being rushed. I want to thank them for their respectful and constructive engagement with me, particularly given the circumstances in which this bill has been introduced. They have been very, very respectful and understand the need for reform to be looked at. In representing them and acknowledging my own shortfalls in understanding guns, I have consulted heavily with my fellow regional independents including the following crossbench members: the member for Barwon, the member for Wagga Wagga, the member for Orange, the member for Wallandilly, and others. And I note that I have been working with them to ensure that the constituents that have expressed the need for consultation with regards to gun ownership are represented. And I want to particularly acknowledge some of the people that have written in to me, particularly those from the New South Wales Gun Club, the Peninsula Firearm Academy, St Ives Pistol Club, and for those that I've spoken to, including members of those clubs and those who represent those clubs also. I do note the need for consultation with this community, whether it be in regards to the regulations, if this bill passes, and the need for reviews and further consultation to make sure that we bring the community along and the industries along and avoid unintended consequences as much as possible, and to ensure these laws work as intended. There is a strong feeling in this community that they are taking the fall for circumstances for which they are not to blame, that the reforms do not address the real issues, and a host of unintended consequences, everything from managing invasive species to supporting Olympic sports and impacting businesses, may occur. However, it is clear that firearms licensing is wanted in my electorate, and I do support those aspects of the bill. And I also defer to my crossbench colleagues, as mentioned, to continue to advocate for those in the gun industry. In regards to the protest reforms that this bill contains, the bill also raises difficult questions about protest reform and freedom of expression through the use of symbols. And following Sunday, I want to acknowledge that our world has changed, Australia has changed, and Sydney has changed. And we must listen and take action that includes strengthening our approach to protest laws. We do live in a liberal democracy, and the right to protest and speak freely is of course fundamental, but it is not absolute. It must not come at the expense of social cohesion or the safety of others, particularly our Jewish community. I note that many people in Pittwater did support the March for Humanity, calling for peace in Gaza, and I note that those people did so in good faith, motivated by humanitarian concern. It was, for most of these people, the first march that they had attended and the first protest of this nature they had attended. And for many that have expressed to me who attended that march that there was a clear line for them. They've acknowledged that in post-Sunday that their position may be different for some people, for others not. And they have said to me that they feel that they did not conflate criticism of the Israeli government, and they did not conflate that with anti-Semitism. They would never want that. They believe that these issues could not be conflated. However, we must now recognise that by not conflating these issues in theory isn't necessarily what happens in practice for many Jewish people. Inherently, these issues are conflated for some. What I've come to understand more clearly is that what may appear as not conflating can only be theoretical for some. And even when protests are peaceful, the presence of anti-Semitic symbols, chants or rhetoric, even by a small number, has a profound and frightening impact on Jewish Australians, or many Jewish Australians. What some view as political expression can feel in practice like an existential threat. And when Jewish Australians tell us how this is being experienced, we must listen. Many in my community, particularly in recent days, have also said that they do want a pause to the protests. They want to stand with the Jewish community, and they do feel enough is enough. Others have written to me concerned that this legislation will limit the right to protest or that will undermine our liberal democracy. I do not believe it does. It strikes the right balance. It provides a pause following a terrorist attack, and also provides for geographical limitations. These are reasonable changes. It will be effective but not restrictive, and doesn't go so far as to curtail rights that could lead to further inflammation. And people have expressly concerned that they recognise that the right to protest also does provide a valve for release for tensions, and that is an important aspect to keep within our democracy, and also acknowledge that it is that by making one law we can exacerbate another, particularly in the rise of, say, libertarian values or sovereign citizens also. This is a day for decisive action, and when action is taken, this is a day for decisive action. I've heard clearly from the Jewish community that firearms reform must not become a distraction from the real issues, and today is one bill which I hope will be followed by many in the new year. Speaker, an extension of time.
Question is the member be granted an extension of time. All of that opinion say aye. The ayes have it. The ayes have it.
We also need to make sure that we address in the future hate speech and radicalisation, and also community anti-Semitism. Former Pittwater resident Ed Hamalgi just announced he has closed his bakery, outlining the anti-Semitic graffiti and other attacks that have been occurring over a number of years. We must also consider from first principles why any community should need private security to attend school, worship, or to go shopping, and why community security groups is necessary at all. We must build a society where this is no longer required. But in the meantime, both state and federal governments must do more through policing, intelligence, protective services, and new legislation. This legislation is necessary, but it is not sufficient, and we need. And I'm supportive of a Royal Commission with comprehensive forensic investigation into intelligence sharing, firearms licensing, hate speech, violent extremism, neo-Nazism, far-left and far-right radicalisation, and emerging threats, as I mentioned, like the sovereign citizen movement. In 2025, we must also ask serious questions about our data systems and why they are not coordinated. This Parliament is leading Australia and is setting an example of robust debate and reform that is critically analysed, also bipartisan. It must just be the beginning. I commend the bill to the House.
Question is the bill be read as second.